Jimmy Doan Show. Coming to you live at 4 o'clock or thereabouts on Wednesdays and Sundays. We do this twice a week these days. Stop in anytime. I am Counselor Curtis. I'm here with Jimmy Doan.
I'm Jimmy Doan, here with Counselor Curtis.
Today
is the 19th, I think, isn't it?
Yes, it is. September the 19th. And we are bringing you the news.
Well, at least our take on it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly. So what's going on?
Well, it's a couple of things. Of course, the big news is all over the place. You just can't get away from it. Is this Cavanaugh thing?
Yeah. Now, we talked about it a little bit last week.
I know we did.
I had not seen any of the allegations up to that point. But now I have.
Okay.
And they're very serious.
Really?
I mean, yeah. It's attempted rape that she's alleging. I mean, it's a major crime. And it's not something, it's a major crime. Now, here's the good news is...
They were juveniles.
It doesn't matter. They lock people away for that stuff. I mean, absolutely lock them, years in prison for that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So, but the good news is that the courts deal with these kinds of things all the time. And so it's very easy to deal with, and it's simple. What happens is, if she wants to make a complaint, she goes down to the local police department where it happened, or wherever she is, and says, this is what happened. Mm-hmm. And then they can decide whether or not they want to investigate. Now, I mean, obviously it's been 35 years or something like that. Evidence is effervescent. Memories are lame after that level of time. So that's why we have statutes of limitations. And you're not supposed to bring cases this late in the game because, theoretically you've already allowed harm to befall all kinds of other potential victims since you didn't come forward initially. Mm-hmm. And also, it's very, very difficult to prove these kinds of things after that much time. So, but they can do it. She can do it if she wants to. If the statute of limitations hasn't expired already, which on sex crimes in a lot of states it's infinite anyway. So
really,
yeah, they've done away with that. So and consent is irrelevant because if they were juveniles, then it doesn't matter if she was willing to participate. But she, of course, says she wasn't. She says this was an absolute attempted rape. And now there's some discrepancies in her account. The account that she gave to the psychiatrist in 2012 accounted for 4 boys in the room, mm-hmm. or in the area. And she says that's a mistake by the therapist, taking the notes. Well, okay. The bottom line is, all you do is this. This is simple to deal with. You call her in and you say, do you want to testify? If she says no, then you pretty much discount her non-testimony because it's not evidence anymore. It's not, you can't do anything with it. If she says yes, then you look at her and you decide whether or not you believe her. And then you bring Cavanaugh back in and he does the same thing. And you say, well, did you do this? Now, it sucks for him because as a defendant, you would never put your guy on the stand to deny something like that. Right. Because if he does anything wrong, if he stutters, if he makes a Freudian slip or anything, everyone will condemn him. They'll think it's guilt. And it's very, very difficult to testify cleanly and just say your denial and get away with it, because they'll poke him and prod him from every direction and they'll try to make him slip up, and then they'll say that's a lie and blah, blah, blah. So it's a tough situation that he's in, but there's nothing else you can do about it. You have to take her allegations seriously. I know it smacks of...
It's so beyond the pale on so many things. First of all, she's probably never going to testify because she has said so far that she will only testify after a Federal Bureau of investigation.
Well, the feds aren't going to do anything.
No, I know what I'm saying. It's not a federal crime.
Right. People don't maybe understand, but things like sex crimes or violent crimes of violence, general crimes are not federal crimes.
Right.
Those are
My
state
point
crimes.
is that she has claimed absolutely that she will not testify unless the FBI does the investigation. Well, the FBI is certainly going to blow it off. I mean, I can't imagine them taking it up if it wasn't a federal crime. That's all I have to say. We're not touching it.
Not their jurisdiction.
Not their jurisdiction. So that's the number one thing. If she's serious about not testifying until the FBI completes their stuff, which of course means that she's not going to have to testify.
Well, but if she doesn't testify, then you basically discount her testimony heavily.
Well, that's right. Well, not only that, the holes in her account are so you could drive a truck through them. I mean, they're huge.
It's not.
She's
holes.
drunk, for one thing.
Well, yeah, but that's not a hole.
Was your memory impaired? I mean,
well, of course
you remember this after
years ago.
You remember this, and it's interesting that you show up, Miss super ultra liberal California women's studies or whatever she does, psychologist or something, that you show up, days before the midterm or days before he's supposed to be.
Better late than never. I mean, look, it smacks of a dirty trick. I mean, it seems like a lame trick because of the 11th hour situation. Oh, Jesus.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Sort of.
I got it. Thank you. Okay.
You got your shirt and stuff now.
That's all right. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it does. It's interesting because there are people that are. I was listening to that idiot Michael Moore I was listening to Michael Moore on his thing, and of course he is way off the deep end.
Yeah.
He said that the criminal Trump, treasonous Trump, doesn't have any right to even nominate anybody to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, he doesn't understand the concept of innocent until proven guilty.
Well, and of course
we have a constitutional thing there.
He said that he is a criminal, and I forget exactly what it.
Yeah, well,
maybe it's a sexual predator or something like that. Doesn't have any, right to nominate a Supreme Court, and of course, especially this guy, who, according to Michael Moore, is going to absolutely on day one overturn Roe v. Wade, which happens to be the one thing that they're all panicky about.
Yeah.
Out of all the other hundreds of cases that he's going to be in on, and of course, the other thing you have to realize is what's so funny about this, in a way, is that you have to have 5 justices in order to do anything, plus or minus. So there's 4 others there, that nobody's hollering about him or anything, or trying to impeach him or anything. I mean, this is just another one of the 9.
Yeah, well, I don't understand what you mean by that.
What I mean is that this is a collaborative effort. If you get rid of Roe, you have to have a collaborative effort to do it, and it's not just him.
Oh, right, yeah. The other.
I mean,
yeah. Look, it's a battleground. They're fighting it tooth and nail. Let them go. You hope that something like this last minute thing doesn't turn out to be an actual, absolute dirty trick. But
well, the whole point about it is what's interesting about this, in a way, and everybody's talked about this 100 times, is, well, you have to take it seriously because of the allegations. Mm-hmm. Well, but if you do that, I mean, anybody can allocate. That's
okay, because it comes out in the wash. It absolutely comes out. First of all, people are loath to place false allegations on other people. For the most part, they don't want to do that. And because it's a nasty, sticky spider web of a lie. Once you start weaving that web, you're caught up in it. I mean, you're subject to false accusation charges. That's an actual libelous standard. If you accuse someone of a crime, especially a heinous crime that they didn't commit, and it's found out that you made that shit up, man, you're going to go down hard.
Well, what gets me, I agree with you, but here's another one of the holes in the thing is, she said that the 2 guys were on top of her. Okay, and she got away. And I'm thinking...
yeah, well, she said they were drunk, and I know, she's better come up with a bunch more details for the story.
Well, that's number one. She better come up with a bunch more details. But not only that, the question is, what constitutes an attempted rape?
That stuff she described constitutes attempted rape. I mean, you cannot...
They started to rip her clothes off.
That's attempted rape. There you go.
It is?
Yeah.
It's called attempted ripping your clothes off.
That's right. And so the inference, you can draw an inference from the actions that they were going to go further than that. And I mean that's why a young boy rips a young girl's clothes off. It's not just to have her clothes.
What happens? And of course, he actually didn't get them off.
Right.
Okay, so what happens though if you walk up to a girl these days and just rip her brow off? You know, she's in a swimsuit.
Man, I mean, a hideous sexual assault charge. Hideous, absolutely.
That's
hideous.
all.
Yeah, I mean that's so. Look, like I said, you have to. It's okay. It's okay that people can come forward and just make stuff up, because another thing that prevents them from doing that is people are horrible liars.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, people are horrible. They don't practice it all the time, and they come up with the same stuff over and over again. It's the dog ate my homework.
Yeah.
And so if she tries to go in to someplace and spin some tale, they're going to see right through her. If
I've
she's,
already seen through her.
well, maybe so. Look, she hadn't said anything in person yet, and so until
she's speaking through her attorney.
exactly, and a letter and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, until we actually see her say something, we won't know much of what's going on. All you do is you listen to both parties. Everybody makes the call. That's what you do.
Maybe she's going to get a book deal.
Oh, there's no question. She will go down. She will be look, Anita Hill. Anita Hill is a professor. She gets $10,000 a speech guaranteed everywhere she goes. She
Yeah.
travels the country, the world, speaking for assault victim. And this is somebody, and Clarence Thomas is on the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And so there's no question that no matter what happens, this woman has written her ticket.
Okay.
I mean, she is
Interesting.
going to be rich and famous from here on out. She can run for office if she wants to.
Yeah, especially in California.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is she's golden. So that's another thing that kind of cuts against the veracity of her story. But look, you won't need to weigh all those externalities in, because you'll be able to tell by watching the actual people testify about what actually happened. Now, the only exception to that is she could be imagining it. She could have literally had that happen to her from some other guy.
Right.
She could have oh, you know what? I used to like Cavanaugh, so I'm going to put him in that position. In her memory, unconsciously, she puts him in that guy's position when really it was some hideous guy she didn't like or something. And so now her account of everything will appear very factual, because it is factual. And the only thing different is it wasn't Cavanaugh or something like that. And so that is a problem for him if she comes across incredibly believable. And it's
he said, she said, what if he says, I was never at that party. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, and that's what, fortunately, we have another witness.
Yeah.
She says, this guy, and she identified the guy by name.
Right.
So this guy says, in a letter from his attorney, that it never happened, and he doesn't remember anything like that, ever. And now, the one interesting thing, I didn't see the exact wording. The way that the wording was read to me was kind of scary. He said, I don't remember that incident. And instead he should have said, nothing like that ever happened.
Yeah.
And, because it sounds like almost maybe there was another incident that, Now he did say right after that, and it never happened at any time ever. He clarified a little bit, but the initial, this incident didn't happen, or that incident, I wouldn't even address it as an incident if it wasn't an incident.
Yeah.
I would say, this person is just fabricating stuff. Nothing like that ever happened. Now he's kind of put himself. It's funny. He sent a letter and says he won't testify because he doesn't remember anything about it. And I'm sorry, bud. That doesn't do it. They're going to bring you in anyway. They can subpoena him. And the fact is that maybe his recollection will be refreshed because of what she says under the testimony. If she's able to narrow it down, like right now, the time frame is like 4 years. It's like sometime between when she was 15 and 19. That's the time frame that we have.
Oh, really?
It's huge. And so it's almost impossible to rebut that from a defense standpoint, because you can't say, well, he wasn't there. The area that she's named is like suburban Maryland or something.
Yeah.
It's like 100 square miles at least. I mean, it's huge. So she better provide some more specific facts regarding the time frame, the number of boys, and the location.
Where it was.
And the location, exactly.
It was in that house.
That's right. And like you wouldn't remember. Now maybe she repressed it all. Maybe as soon as she got out of there, flood of emotion, and she just repressed the whole thing, went and ran somewhere and cried in the shower and never thought about it again until she had to in 2012 when she's visiting the therapist. Okay, it's possible. I personally think I would remember. But then again, my memory is really good. But I don't know how.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience with Mrs. Jimmy that we often remember things differently.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, really. I mean, just where it was,
Right.
when it was, and so forth. I mean,
Right.
all the time. And we were
35 years.
Both of us are absolutely convinced. Now, I have learned one thing. I have learned is to take whatever she says.
Right. Just
After 50 years of marriage, I have learned when she says that this is the way it happened. Yes, ma'am, that's right. But I know in my head that is not the way I remember it at all.
Right.
So that's the kind of thing it seems to me that she's got these gaping holes as far as I'm concerned in her story, and like you say, can't remember when, where, anything about it, and it could have been, as you said, another time, another place, and I've transferred
Another
it over,
person.
and I just
Easily. Well, look, all those things that you can weigh those things in the testimony. That is, when you're questioning somebody like that, if I was going to cross-examine her on the stand, it would be, so, tell me about your high school life, and and let's start way back then, and just walk her through it. And when did you, let's go to some time after this event. The first time you had a negative experience as a result of the experiences that happened in this event. When was the first time that you felt a resurgence of those emotions or some type of...
Well, of course, you'd say, you're 15 years old. Have you been to parties like this before?
Right,
where there was drinking?
Right, exactly.
I mean, how many you were 13?
How many parties did you
how
go?
many did you go? And how soon after that did you go to another party? And
That's
where,
right. There's a million things.
Oh, yeah.
And she's going to have to answer all those things if she wants this to stick. I personally think she won't testify.
That's what I'm saying.
I think, and I don't know if they'll call Cavanaugh back to deny it or not. Probably if they can, the Democrats will do it if they can.
Well, but but they're not a majority on thing. The scary part, of course, is like Jeff Flake, who said, "Well, maybe we need to hear some more," or something like that. I think he's on the committee.
Well, I think they're gonna hear everything, and certainly they've already heard everything you would think, because they've already had days to question him.
Well, not only that,
and why Feinstein didn't bring this up during that time?
How about when he was appointed a judge the first time, when they cleared him to?
Well, but Feinstein didn't know about it at that point.
No, I know.
But Feinstein knew about it in July.
Right.
And so, what happened in August? Where was her concern for the potential victims during the month of August? I mean,
Right.
it doesn't exist. And so, again, it smacks of a dirty trick.
Yeah.
But we'll see. And it would be awful if they were using this girl for that, or if she is participating in it as a means to
keep him off the court.
Yeah.
Well,
or
the other thing is that what happens. I mean, if he decides to withdraw or something, or they vote him down, then what? They have to start all over.
Yeah.
And of course, what's going to happen then is, then they have the midterm elections, and one of the good news and bad news, of course, is that the new Congress does not take, even if they lose the Senate or the House or anything, none of them get seated until the 2nd of January.
Yeah, plenty of time to confirm.
Plenty of time. That's right. Plenty of time.
Kavanaugh wasn't my first pick of the group, so
I know one. Well, again, it's we'll see.
yeah.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
The European Parliament has passed, this is right up your alley, the European Parliament has passed sweeping copyright legislation Wednesday that, much like its privacy regulations, could have a huge impact beyond Europe. This is the most controversial part of the proposal. Will effectively force all but the smallest website operators to adopt upload filters, and that is when you start to upload something, have an AI upload filter that says no, you can't put this on there. It's what do you call it? Pre-censorship? What is it?
Yeah, exactly.
What do they call that? Come on, it's a legal term.
Yeah, and I know. It's right at the tip of my tongue too.
Yeah, it's when you claim the newspaper can't publish something in advance or something. But anyway, the point is that
Preclusion.
so it could pose problems given how expensive such filters could be to develop, and the high likelihood of false positives.
Oh yeah.
That's the thing. Is you could sit there when we were talking about this before, when the NSA or whatever it was is snooping in on everybody's podcasts and mail and everything, and so we would sit there and when we were doing this before, we would say,
Terrorist bomb.
terrorist bomb, whatever it is.
Right.
Catch me if you can. That kind of
Right,
stuff.
right.
So as they go through the filter,
New York City, 9/11.
so anyway, what's interesting to me, and of course you've talked about this copyright business for a long time. Proponents of the proposal say it's necessary to protect artists whose work is pirated online, as well as newspapers and journalists at risk of having their business models undermined by social media giants.
Yeah, right.
Well, the thing about it is what's fascinating in a way is when you look at musicians, for instance, and other people, there are other people that do this, that basically put their stuff online for free.
Right.
And they make fortunes.
Right.
I mean, that's when they fill up the stadiums. It turns out that you want your stuff to be ripped off.
That's
Especially
exactly what you want.
You really want.
And if you're an artist, you want the widest distribution possible of your work.
Yep.
And copyright is a drag on distribution.
Right.
They claim that it's a boon to production. That is, they claim that artists are actually going into artistry because they feel like they can get some extra money out of the copyright protection.
Right.
Wrong! No. They do it because they have to do it, because they're artists. That they were born that way,
right.
And that's what they do, okay? And you're not protecting them with copyright, because what happens is, inevitably, is somebody buys the copyright. And then that person effectively owns the artist, which is why Prince changed his name from Prince to the artist formerly known as Prince, an unpronounceable symbol, because in his contract, he couldn't use a name that he could pronounce. So that's why we have that symbol, and his name is Tafcap now.
Yeah.
So look, it goes back to, people always point to copyright and they say, look, it's in the Constitution. It's in the Constitution. Yeah, it is. And it's a lame mistake that they incorporated in the Constitution.
Yeah.
If you go back further than the Constitution, it comes from Queen Anne's Law, which was a law that was passed after the invention of the printing press.
Right.
And the concept was they didn't want people just printing their own Bibles and books and pamphlets and literature, because then dangerous ideas could proliferate everywhere. And so you had to run all of your stuff by the Queen's men, the scribes, the former people who used to copy everything by hand. And if you didn't do that, or you violated that in some way, then you paid a royalty to the crown, which is why it's still called a royalty. It's just a fine because the people in power don't like what you're doing. Right. That's all it is. And
it's a copyright. Of course, think about it. It's a right to copy your own stuff.
Right.
And that's all. And nobody else can do it. So they put a stamp on there and say this guy's approved to do it.
And I've said a million times, there's no need at all for property protections for, quote, intellectual property, because intellectual property is not property. It doesn't occupy space and time the way that all other property does. And that's why we need property laws and laws which determine who owns stuff. Because if I have a thing, like if I have this thing and I'm using it, then you can't have it and use it. And so it's property, and we need rules to determine how to use, who gets to be the operator. But intellectual property is not like that. I can have a song in my head, I can sing it to you, you can have it in your head. And there's no effect on my song in my head when you have it in your head. It doesn't leave my head. So there's no need for copyright protections. And I think we're entering into a nice era where the copyright protections will be diminished and hopefully eradicated completely over the next century, or even hopefully a decade or so, because as we share information across borders internationally through the internet, such copyrights are just being violated all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
And I gotta believe the Chinese are copying everything in sight.
Oh, yeah.
And so why not? From my perspective, they say, oh, well, you're ripping off the artist because the artist could go over there and sell the music and that you're selling. Yeah, but they're not, okay? And even if they are, they're doing it too slow. So the bottom line is somebody's taking the initiative, somebody's doing something with it, and they're making money. That is the very definition of Lockean, his description of how you work the land, and that makes it your land. And it's the same thing for intellectual property. If you work the intellectual property, it's your property. And so that's the way it should be. So hopefully we'll see. It's unfortunate that Europeans are going the other way right now.
Yeah.
But I expect some backlash, stuff like this, because
Well, I don't think it's going to be enforceable.
no, it's not.
What they're talking is the legislation also requires site owners to pay for displaying snippets of content. Critics have called this the link tax, though links and search engine listings are exempted. But the point is that if you have a snippet of something out of a book or whatever it is, you have to pay.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, how are they going to collect it? Who goes what? I mean,
well, what they'll do if they do it, and I guess in Europe, is they'll have some super lame filter. They'll snag some people for doing it, and they'll pat themselves on the back for having prevented some sort of crime or something. And in the meantime, they'll just create a huge drag on distribution of all information, and people will suffer because of that drag.
well, it's interesting to me when I look at somebody like Louis C.K. for instance. He sent me things when he does a new stand-up. He says he can buy it for $5.
Mm-hmm.
Download the whole thing, no problem, $5.
Yeah.
And he was making more money on that. He said he was making millions. He was getting. I mean, he did this whatever the stand-up was, and then and you can also go through and watch the other ones you can watch for free are my other favorite guy, Louis Black.
Mm-hmm.
His stuff, his whole shows are free, snippets and everything like that.
And people will say things like, well, yeah, but if you didn't have copyright, then somebody else could put up a Louis C.K. site and download it for money and stuff. Yeah, they could, but you know where you'd go? You'd go to Louis' site to get it from Louis.
Right.
And
I mean, this happens all the time. There are so often that people want the original.
Right.
If you have a Philippine band that imitates the Beatles,
right.
I'm sorry, that's not the Beatles.
That's it. and you want to see the Beatles.
That's right.
It's true.
Okay, so the next item.
Okay.
Michael R. Bloomberg is in the news again.
Oh.
He's actively considering a campaign for president as a Democrat in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Concluding that it will be his only path to the White House, even as voices stark disagreements with progressives on defining issues, including bank regulation, stop and frisk, and so forth. Mr. Bloomberg, 76. Now think about it. He's 76, so he's going to make a run in 2020, so he'll be 78 when he run, and expect to serve out at least 4 years till he's 82. Okay, fine. A billionaire media executive and former New York City mayor has already aligned himself with Democrats in the midterm elections, approving a plan to spend $80 million to flip control of the House of Representatives. A political group he controls will soon begin spending heavily in 3 Republican-held districts in Southern California, attacking conservative candidates for their stances on abortion, guns, and the environment. But Mr. Bloomberg's aspirations appear to run well beyond dismantling the Republicans' House majority, and he's taking steps that advisors acknowledge are aimed at part of testing his options for 2020. Well, of course, he's tested his options before. I mean, it seems like every time there's a presidential election, he tests his options or something. But what I find interesting is $80 million he's going to spend in 3 districts from New York, Southern California. Just kind of interesting to see if you got that.
Knock yourself out, man.
Yeah.
I mean, my thought is money is not a determining factor in elections. I don't think it ever has been. We've had.
Yeah, it has been. I think it has been. It is quite a bit. I mean, money is as I say, money is the milk of politics, or milk.
They think that, and what they do is they go out and they solicit tons of money for the advertising. But I think it's like Procter & Gamble. The Procter & Gamble CEO once said, half of my advertising does no good at all, but I don't know what half.
Okay.
And I think that that's probably the same with politicians or more. You can unadvertise yourself. You put your guy out there and you put the issues out there, and people don't like those issues and they vote for the other guy. You've unadvertised your guy. So I think that these days you can find out who anybody is. You just go online and you Google the person's name for whatever office they're running, and there's a list of their stuff. And that's all advertising. At its core, advertising is just information. It's just the information you need to make a decision about whether you're going to buy this product or that product. And if the information is readily available on somebody's website, then who cares how many different commercials you see for so-and-so? I mean, it doesn't... to me, it's a huge waste cash, and I don't see that it's going to make any difference. What I point to are all the billionaires who have tried to run for office and failed.
Okay.
I mean, you look back over, Trump's the first one that made it. You know, we had Ross Perot, we had, didn't Bloomberg run in the past? Or,
I think he might have.
and there was another billionaire, who is that? Was it,
Whatever.
There were several guys. The CEO of Hewlett Packard tried to run out in California, spent $800 million, whatever it was, fail. Yeah. So to me, knock yourself out, but that doesn't do anything.
And of course, there's some notable cases where the guy who spent almost nothing wins because of some core issue. I remember there was one in California where there was some big polluter, and the guy ran as mayor in this place or something against the polluter, and he didn't spend any money, but boy, he tore him a new one. So anyway, but one of the little minor problems is we do have a lot of low information voters, and the idea is to find somehow through demagoguery to reach those voters, so that they'll actually walk in there, and so we'll see. I mean, typically here in Alachua County, the turnout for now, I don't know what's going to be in November, but it's usually way less than 50%. In some instances, when it's off, not a November thing, the turnout is like 18 or 20% of the electorate, and that's all that's making the difference. So you can't. The fact is that everybody else has to kowtow to the winners. So anyway, okay. Next item on our defense. This is interesting. I thought the U.S. Air Force is predicting it will need to grow sharply over the next decade or so, boosting the number of operational squadrons by nearly a quarter to stay ahead of increasingly muscular militaries in China and Russia. Mm-hmm. Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson told reporters that the preliminary analysis drew partly from classified intelligence, of course we know about that, about possible threats between 2025 and 2030, showing that the service at its current size would be unable to preserve America's edge. The Air Force analysis did not include a price tag, but we do know that Boeing and Lockheed Martin are going to be huge beneficiaries of this. The interesting thing is that right now, when you look at China and Russia, they are a mere shadow of what our military is. I mean, they're nothing. Now, they're all panicky worried about the hypersonic missiles that Russia has been developing, I guess. But the Chinese, I think, launched their first or second aircraft carrier. I don't know how many Russia has, but and then there's the submarines and all this stuff. I mean, we are so far. We've got over a dozen aircraft carrier groups around the world, and I think the number's like 14 or 17 or something. Anyway, it's at least a dozen. And they're nuclear powered and with all kinds of the fanciest planes you can imagine and so forth. I mean, the idea that you need to beef that up, to me, and of course they are always working on the next airplanes. I understand that part to some extent, but this idea when our military budget is $800 billion, which dwarfs the next 5 or 6 combined. I mean,
I think it's 10.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Whatever. It's a lot. The point is that and of course the problem is with our budget is that it tends to be a little bit of waste here and there, but still, the idea that we're falling behind is ludicrous.
It is. Look,
these other guys can't afford to pay what we pay.
Yeah. No. There's no chance that anybody can keep up with our spending in terms of military, even at current levels. Russia, again, Russia's entire economy is like a $1.5 trillion economy. I mean, it's not that big, and there's no way they can keep up with us in terms of spending. Right. No chance. Now, China has a lot more men in their military than we do. Big deal.
What are they going to swim over?
Exactly. Knock yourself out. Y'all all going to come over on the one aircraft carrier? I don't think so. And okay, hypersonic missile. Yeah, look, I've been waiting. Warfare evolves.
Right.
And the last time we had major wars, it's aircraft carriers and fighter jets and stuff like that. I'm guessing the next time's not going to be that, or it's going to be a little different. We got drones everywhere now. There's going to be swarms of drones. That's going to change things. And things like hypersonic missiles, I think, are going to render large ships a little bit less effective and potentially destroy that entire model.
Right.
I mean, if all you have to do is fire a hypersonic missile and a ship goes down, all you need is a few dozen of them, and you own the seas. So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. But we're in no danger, and also all those countries are all so dependent on us right now, economically speaking. Nobody wants to go to war with us right now. Are you kidding? It would decimate their economy just by putting us into some kind of a state of war. I mean, forget about the sanctions or whatever. The shock waves would be unbelievable, and not only that, but they would harm so many other people. There would be voices from all over the world chiming in to say, put the kibosh on the war, kind of thing. So I don't think we're in any real danger. That now I have read some interesting things about China, and I'm a little worried about China because of the fact that it's such a giant country that still has such a communist autocratic rule. I think that they're subject to a potential collapse here and there. And when there's a large economic collapse, it's a lot easier to rile people up for military intervention. And you could certainly see China deciding to take over some of those smaller Southeast Asian countries just because they want the resources or for the heck of it or whatever. And if there was a giant economic collapse, and we would probably jump in on their side, and then
the Chinese side?
No, on the other people's side, whoever it was. Taiwan. I mean, can you imagine if Japan? I mean, if China decided, you know what, we're just going to take Taiwan again. That's just ours, and so we're just going to do it. And I mean, Taiwan is amazingly productive.
Oh yeah.
And so it would be a great acquisition for them if they could take it back.
Same way the great acquisition is Hong Kong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course the British just gave it to them. Like, what the hell were they thinking?
Well, they had already signed an agreement.
I know, but I mean, that's what lease. I mean, that's so. I'm with you. Every time I hear a push for the military spending, I think to myself, I think we could easily cut our military spending in half.
Yeah, I agree.
And have literally no negative effect. In fact, it would be a huge positive effect because of all the workers that would come home, all the former soldiers that wouldn't need to be in the military anymore. And all that money could be reallocated.
Well, of course, the other thing that we do is we have, bases in 136 countries or something like that. Interestingly enough, I'm going to talk about this here in a minute, about the, let's see, this is the, we'll talk about Poland in a minute. This is another little human interest story. A U.S. Coast Guard, this is interesting, a U.S. Coast Guard member assigned to hurricane duty has been removed after being caught on television making a gesture which some viewers alleged was a white power symbol. He was removed from that area, whatever it was. His actions do not reflect the United States Coast Guard. In the background, apparently they were doing some kind of an interview or something like that, or filming. In the background sat another member with short hair who turned toward the camera and moved his right hand alongside his head, his thumb and index finger. I guess it must have been something like this.
Oh yeah, like wiping his brow or something.
Yeah, right. So something like that. And they his thumb, so forth. Twitter users, including Jan Gobble, a computer programmer, interpreted this as a racist message. What's interesting is you look every place. What if it was? I mean,
well, exactly. I had somebody posted one of those pictures, and I said, "What do they get out of this? Like, what does that person get out from doing that? What do you think that they think they get?" To me, they're either trolling, they're just trolling all the left.
Right.
And what they're trying to do is trying to get them to say white power racism so many times that when somebody who is actually racist and white power comes along, we won't care because they've called every one of us white power racists for a decade or something. And so well, that's just a normal person then.
Yeah.
At that point, it's everybody.
They're so sensitive to this stuff. I mean, the Coast Guard removed the guy. I mean, this is they got him off the ship. I mean, I don't think he had to resign from the Coast Guard or anything, but some disciplinary action. I'm sitting there thinking, what are you talking about? I mean, the guy's over there in Rescueville,
right, serving his country,
and all trying to save everybody from Florence, and now you kowtow to this one programmer guy, who was offended. God, kind of arrest. Just stupid.
Well, I tell people all the time, you can't, you should never infer negativity. You should never look at something and say, oh, I know what they were trying to say.
Yeah, mind readers.
And it's really negative, and I'm offended by that. They didn't say anything like that, but I know what they really meant.
That's right.
And
it's what Scott Adams called mind readers. He doesn't, this is what they're, how do you know what this guy's thinking?
And to me, it's like if you're going to infer the negative every time, you're just going to bury yourself. Because everybody's going to show up on your radar.
Well, what's interesting is the people that are offended by everything. I mean, how do you go through life if you're an offendee?
Right.
And you every time you look around, you see something that.
Every time somebody gives the OK sign, you see white power.
And there are some places, I forget where it is, but there are some cultures where that is a very bad symbol.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so now if you do this, I don't know what that means anymore.
That's probably something bad. Well, in Italy, thumbs up, I think, is bad. I think that's like giving you the finger.
Okay, could be. And again, you never know. The cultural differences are unbelievable. So, okay, well, great. Now, here's the other thing. This is hilarious.
Okay.
U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis accused Russia on Monday of attempting to influence the outcome of a referendum in Macedonia on changing the country's name that would open it way to join NATO and the European Union. Now, this is, for those of you who don't know, the Macedonia is a separate country, but it has the same name as a province in Greece.
Okay.
So what they decided to do is they were having a referendum to change the name of the country of Macedonia, which is a postage stampy country. Mm-hmm. Speaking of after talks in wherever this is with Macedonia's leaders, Mattis also said the United States was looking to expand cybersecurity operation in the small Balkan country. Now, one of the things that I find interesting, among others, is that they're accusing the Russians of meddling in Macedonia, and that's our business. I mean, so what are we going to do? Macedonians will vote on September 30th on a deal reached in June with neighboring Greece that would change the country's name to the Republic of Northern Macedonia. Athens insisted on the change in return for lifting its opposition to wherever this is, the Skopje, whatever, joining NATO and the EU. Well, that's what we need, of course, is another member of the EU, which is floundering, and another member of NATO. So they can get all our bonds.
And not only that, but it's like the easternmost country in Europe.
Right.
I mean, it is right up against Russia.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, they are. Here's what Mattis says. He says that we do not want to see Russia doing it there in Macedonia what they have tried to do in so many other countries. Mattis told reporters traveling with him to Skopje, whatever, apparently referring to Washington's concerns about Russian meddling in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. It is stunning to me that that we, who are the ultimate interferers in hundreds of countries, or more than 100 countries, that's what we do. We have CIA operatives in over 100 countries that do nothing but meddle. And now this is the pot calling the kettle black. It's just, to me, it's unbelievable. And so we don't want Russia to interfere over there in their election. And the irony is thick. It's just thick.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you said, I don't think we need another.
I don't know. Of course, now I don't know which side Russia is on. I think Russia. I don't know whether they're trying to have this referendum fail or succeed.
Well, probably fail, because that way then.
Oh, that's right. Then they won't become a NATO. Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So basically, then they're still going to be called Macedonia. I don't know what their zip code is, but if you address something to.
We are all up in Russia's business over there. Apparently, we are still arming rebels in Ukraine. And
well, there's also some. They're trying to some kind of a little piece around some part of Syria now that I haven't figured out exactly what that is. They're going to have a safe zone or something where the one province that's still held by the rebels, I think, in Syria. I don't know. We'll talk about that some other time. Okay. This is another thing that we're talking about here. The Trump administration has delayed until next month plans to send a message to all U.S. cell phones testing a previously unused presidential alert system that aims to warn the public about national emergencies, say the officials. The test message was originally scheduled for 2:18. Remember this, 2:18 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Thursday, but is being pushed back to the same time on October 3rd. So set your alarm, folks. 2:18 Eastern Time on October 3rd, and this FEMA, which will send the alert, said last week that the messages would bear the headline "Presidential Alert," and phones would make a loud tone and have a special vibration. Now, it's bad enough, the Amber Alerts,
right,
which we get from Miami or something, you know, and that sound, you can't turn it off.
No.
It's just this horrible loud sound that goes on, and you know, I'm supposed to look out for a Honda with some tag number,
right,
or whatever, that's, you know, 500 miles away, and I'm going like, God, shit. So now we're going to have a new one.
Right.
And, you know, who knows what's going to be.
Well, I think it's very important that we are all waiting with bated breath for the president's next tweet.
Right.
And
so maybe what he'll do, that's right. He'll fire up this system every time he wants to do a tweet.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, so all day long you're having this
a national emergency message from the president all day long.
Oh my God!
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, you know what could possibly go wrong is a big pile of phones thrown in the river.
Right, exactly. No, I mean
this is not worth it. You know, smash.
God, I remember we used to have I used to have TV, and we had, I swear, like twice a day, they would test the emergency broadcast system.
Right.
It was remarkable how often they tested it. I mean, it was tested so often that if I heard it, I was sure it was a test. Because it was always being tested.
The boy who cried wolf.
Man, I mean, always. And it was just, it's amazing. I don't know. Look, have we ever, as a country, one time actually used the emergency broadcast system?
Yes, we have.
We have?
Yes, I'll tell you when we did.
Okay, I'm ready.
And when I was in the 4th grade, we had a system called Conelrad.
Okay.
This was to alert us to an atom bomb attack from Russia. And you buy this little special receiver, and it had a horn in it and a big red light on it. And then they would test it every once in a while, and you'd hear the little horn in your house and the red light. And what you're supposed to do at that point was to go turn on your radio.
Run for your life.
You run for your life. Well, of course, in the 4th grade, we were supposed to hide under our desks.
Right.
And of course, if you've seen the video footage of an early A-bomb blast, what it did to houses, which flattened them, but hiding under the desk, good. Mm-hmm. So you're going to stay. What the stupid.
Well, I cannot believe that somebody came up with the concept that the president needs to be able to access every person in the United States' phone simultaneously at his whim. It is amazing. Look, we have Twitter. If we want to see what the president says, you can follow him on Twitter. If there's a thing, he'll tweet it.
Yeah, well, not only that, he'll tweet it, and then what you have are the multitude of shares.
Right.
And, you know, it goes viral in 10 minutes.
Right.
So
there's no, it's just bizarro.
Yeah, it is. So anyway, look, mark your calendars.
2:18, huh?
Yeah, 2:18. And you kind of wonder, what is 2:18? I wonder. I don't know. Okay, the next item, international news. Alarmed by the possibility of a bad or no deal Brexit, London mayor, who happens to be a Muslim, Sadiq Khan, has called for a second referendum. For a second referendum on the contentious subject of UK's departure from the European Union. So he did an op-ed in one of the big newspapers, and it says the British public has the right to take back control of the issue after UK Prime Minister Theresa May's abject failure to negotiate a good Brexit deal for the country. Well, of course, who knows what who knows what that's going to look like. That Brexit, you know, the untangling. This is one of those things that you've got to think. They kept their own money, but they hurt a lot of. One of the reasons that the Brexit thing was, it was narrowly approved to get out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it was 52 to 48 or something %. But so now he wants another do-over.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, and maybe he thinks that the people will then decide to stay in the European Union.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, and Boris, the other guy, has been fighting it. There's a bunch of people who have been opposing the Brexit.
Well, Boris was for it, wasn't he?
I thought he was originally, but then I saw something the other day that he was fighting with May. Maybe he was fighting for it, and she's, I don't know. I don't know anymore. But to me, I think they voted for it. They should get it. That's
well, the
what
deadline
it
is like this next March, I think, to have the break.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. But this is one of those things. I look at the European Union, and I think to myself, this is the height of folly because of the multiculturalism.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you unite? It's bad enough in this country, you know, when you go to Miami and you have to speak Spanish or something like that, or you're in a school system in Los Angeles where they have, I don't know how many languages you have to speak and all that kind of stuff. But in Europe, I mean, you travel from France to Germany and you've got a whole new language, a whole new culture.
Yeah, their states are much more distinct than ours.
Right.
I mean, if you're on the border of Florida and Georgia, you don't know where you are.
No. But
if you're in the border between Belgium and Germany or something, I mean, there's there's a difference. And the concept. Look, the concept of the free travel between countries, that's great. The concept of lack of tariffs between those countries, that's great. But like you said, they are so intertwined with various treaties and contracts and things like that.
Which, by the way, are run all out of Brussels and it's unelected. Right.
That's what they basically took over that situation, and that's what they've been doing. And it's
the people that the countries vote for to put in Brussels, they don't have any power. I forget how the people that actually make the laws are appointed, but it's not through any election. So we'll have to talk about that. Okay, now this is another thing. We're going to go back to California again.
Okay.
Los Angeles, one of the world's major fashion centers and a long symbol of glitz and glamour, is taking steps to ban the sale of new fur products, a move that would make it the largest city in the U.S. to do so. A proposal to ban the sale of fur products advanced in the City Council on Tuesday. The council voted unanimously to direct the city attorney to draft an ordinance that will prohibit the manufacture and sale of new fur. And of course, the councilman, Bob Blumenfeld, says it's a moral win. That we're going to do this is morally acceptable. And of course, what's interesting is when you have laws that are moral, you got to ask yourself what. I mean, usually laws are not moral or immoral. They're whatever they are. You know, it's a law. I mean, I don't understand why the morality comes in.
Well, I mean, look, laws do differentiate.
That's social engineering when you have moral.
Well, no, look, that's what we do. I mean, we outlaw assault because it's immoral to hit somebody, and we outlaw thievery because it's immoral, and that's all fine and well and good. What I think the problem is that it's not a moral issue. He's talking about, he thinks it's a moral issue because he thinks it's moral to keep the animals alive and to not use them as our clothing.
Right.
But there is an entire group of people, like everybody else, that basically, look, we're the only intelligent species on the planet at some level. And that is, nothing can resist us. Everything is here sort of for us. If you were to say that we are here for the planet, well, then we just kill ourselves all off, because that doesn't make any sense. The concept is there's a universe here and we get to use stuff out of it. And you get to decide whether or not you want to kill other stuff for the most part. If you want to have pesticides in your yard, you kill a bunch of bugs. You know, if you go out and hack down a tree or just walk across the grass, you're killing stuff. So then the question is, well, how big of a thing is it okay to kill? I mean, if you kill a rat, is that bad? We have rat poisons, we have rat traps, we have all kinds of stuff. But then what about a possum now or something, or a raccoon? And now the bigger we get, the more loath we are to just kill stuff.
Unless they're cattle.
Unless they're cattle, unless we're going to eat it. Right, exactly. I mean...
It doesn't get much bigger than that.
No, we eat them all the time, and we use...
And we wear... of course, we have shoes that are made out of cattle and jackets.
That's right.
But they're not fur.
No, but that's the kind of... I think there's a group of people who would like the utopian future to be all of our materials are synthetic, and as soon as we make them better than the leather, then they will be synthetic, because then they'll be better. And so people will want those things. Well, but right now, animal hide is still an incredibly useful tool for us.
Oh, yeah.
And we haven't outgrown that yet in terms of its usefulness. It's like oil. It's like, you don't like what it is right now, but it's so freaking useful. And coal. Solar may be the future, but it's not the present.
No.
And it's the same for animals. Unfortunately, animals do not get... It's not we the horses. It's we the people. And so... people are going to wear animals. That's just what's going to happen.
Well, the vote also directed the city attorney to report back to the council on several issues, including how fur apparel is utilized by religious organizations and some possible exemptions.
And then like, I love it. It's amoral unless it's really, really moral.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. The ban would cover apparel made in whole or part
unless
of
we do
fur,
it in church,
including clothing, handbags, shoes, hats, earmuffs, jewelry, and keychains. Yeah. Only used fur products could
This is
sold.
Like kosher.
I mean,
you know how like kosher.
Yeah.
I mean, like the pig has to be killed by a rabbi.
Yeah.
And with a single slice of the neck or something and a blade that...
Same thing with chickens.
It's just, there's all these rules about the humanity of the killing. And it's like, really? You're going to kill it humanely and then eat it? Is that what you're going to do? Because to me, that's pretty much the same thing.
Well, I think it's interesting is that they're going to come back and if this law passes, of course, there are so many crazy things, because what happens if you go over and buy your fur coat in Las Vegas?
Right.
And of course, one of the complaints was, look, this is California. Who needs a fur coat? Sunshine and everything.
Yeah.
Nobody needs this. And nobody needs fur shoes, or certainly don't have to have a rabbit's foot on your keychain. Uh-huh. No. This is so we're gonna. So what do you do? I mean, do you arrest people for this? I mean,
Yeah. You fine them, you arrest them, you imprison the hell out of them, and you beat them to the fullest extent of the law.
The other thing is you have to ask yourself is, who's going to tell whether it's faux or not?
Chemists, man. They'll...
No, but if you're walking down the street.
Oh, right, yeah. No, what it is if you're suspected, you'll be assumed that you're guilty.
I see.
They'll take you down. They'll beat you to a pulp. They drag you.
Well, now they throw blood on you, of course.
Right. Yeah.
So if they think you're wearing a fur coat or something. Yeah. But I mean, it's fur earrings, or I mean, like I said, it includes keychains, jewelry, earmuffs, for God's sakes, hats.
Well, and what if there's fur that was humanely sheared off of the animal? I mean, what about that?
Well, of course, that's different. I mean, I think what they're talking about is the skin and the fur. I mean, certainly they're not going to outlaw wool.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
No, I don't think so. You have a wool coat? I don't know. No, you didn't kill the sheep to get the fur, so I think...
But it's fur!
Again, this is California, right?
Right.
So, I mean, what would happen if they banned fur coats like in Alaska? The Eskimos.
Yeah, everybody would die.
Well, not only that, I mean, that's because they don't have any other kind of coat.
That's what I mean.
That's it. You can't, you can't have a fur coat and from an Eskimo. You got to be kidding me.
Hey, look, I will applaud their idealism. Knock yourselves out. Go for it. It's a city. So like you said, so you got to drive to San Diego or Vegas or something to
just
buy.
Go over the border. You could have your fur factory right on the border.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's Encino. It's not LA.
Right.
Santa Monica.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because here in Gainesville, this whole county was dry when I first got here.
Oh yeah.
But there were liquor stores in Gainesville's in this. There were liquor stores at the four corners. I mean, right on the border.
Yeah.
So it was really funny. So you'll see that. Okay. Moving on, this is the last couple of things I've got here.
Okay.
Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund invested over $1 billion Monday in an American electric car manufacturer just weeks after Tesla CEO Elon Musk earlier claimed the kingdom would help his own firm go private. Well, obviously, the Saudi sovereign fund has decided no, they're going to invest in somebody else. A little competition.
Yeah, it's because Elon was smoking weed on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Right, exactly. The Saudi Public Investment Fund said it would invest the over $1 billion in a Newark, California-based Lucid Motors, an 11-year-old private company that has yet to bring a vehicle to market. The investment will provide the necessary funding to commercially launch Lucid's first electric vehicle, the Lucid Air, in 2020. So this is, the company plans to use the funding to complete engineering development and testing for the Lucid Air, construct its factory in Arizona, and enter production. So they're going to, I guess here in just another 2 years, they're going to have another electric car to compete with Tesla, and it's in California. Interesting, on this same note, German luxury car brand Audi on Monday staged the global launch of its new electric sport utility vehicle on the home turf of rival Tesla Inc. They highlighted a deal with Amazon.com to make recharging its forthcoming e-tron models easier. The Audi e-tron mid-sized SUV will be offered in the United States next year at a starting price of $76,000 before roughly a $7,600 tax credit.
Oh, God.
It's one of the volley of electric vehicles coming from Volkswagen AG, as well as other European premium brands, including Daimler-owned Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Volvo Cars, and Jaguar Land Rover. The aim is to expand the premium market for premium electric vehicles and also grab the share from Tesla. What I find interesting about this, of course, is this is what competition is all about.
Right.
I mean, here we have, it starts off with the premium, grabbing the $75,000, less $7,500. But how long, with these guys, all these huge guys competing, how long do you think the price is before the price drops rather dramatically?
All right, should be a nice wave of the electric car future coming our way. Well, it's interesting because, of course, Tesla was supported by a whole bunch of subsidies and such. So now these manufacturers, I wonder what their countries, what their nations support for them, if any. I would bet it's none, because my thought is that they're letting their people sink or swim. And then that way it's a real market when it comes to market.
Right.
They can actually turn a profit.
Well, if they sell their cars in this country, of course, I think they still get the credit.
Okay.
But again, if you're going to sell it in Brazil or something, I don't know what kind of credit there would be, but what's the market like? Again, one of these things that you have to understand, this whole electric thing is a bit of a scam anyway, because when you plug them in, you got your coal-fired or oil-fired or gas-fired power plant here, fossil fuels charging your battery. So
right, but it does redistribute the pollution.
Yes,
you can have
it concentrates it.
Right, you can have those places in somewhere remote, and then obviously beam the electricity over. Beam it over, cable it over, and shoot, I was going to say something. Anyway.
But it's pretty obvious with all these, especially the Germans. All these people doing all this engineering. I mean, you got to believe that there are going to be some pretty amazing results as far as the range.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Problem is, cars don't work well enough yet. There's two problems with electric cars still.
Okay.
One is range. It's like 100 miles, 150 miles, maybe 200 miles for a full charge. And so they're local. It's for local transportation only. You're not going to another city, because if you happen to drive around a little bit and run out of your charge, you're doomed. Your car turns into a brick. And the second thing is, the charging is super slow. The charging
compared to gas.
right, but it's slow enough to the extent that it's basically as if your car broke down. When you pull up to get gas, it's like you got to fix a flat because you're going to be there for a half an hour. So you got to go get coffee or do something else for the half an hour, and like you want to hang out at a gas station for a half an hour. I mean,
well, they may become social.
Well, I thought about that, or a little Starbucks pop up next to them or something.
Totally. Well, but, I mean, Wi-Fi and everything, and
right,
maybe a little Japanese style bed. A
little honeycomb. You can take a nap in.
Take a little nap while your
car recharges.
Yeah.
See, no, we're not gonna. Americans aren't going back to waiting around for gas, which is basically
one of the things is it's not like you're going to be driving across country in 4 days. Like you do now with the gas, because you can fill up rapidly, and move on. But if you're going to have spend an hour or two or whatever it is recharging in all these places. Yeah, I mean, I think you could still do it. I think it's only half an hour or something like that. But still, a half an hour is that's an unmanageable amount of time to have to just park your car in the middle of the day or whenever you. Are around. I mean, I wonder. When you say the range, I wonder what happens, especially here in Florida, when you have to have your AC on high. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. If there's some extra things going on in your car, you're playing the stereo or something. Nighttime with your headlights on. That's it. And your air conditioner, and your range drops to 50 miles. Or something. It's something like that. So when they get the range up to like 1,000 miles or something, or if they can get the charging down to a minute and a half or something like that. Well, they are talking about swapping out batteries. Right. But, then the gas stations all have to have this big pile of batteries. Big pile of batteries. Not only that, but you're talking about hardware then, and then you can have all kinds of problems with it. I mean, you could put the battery in and drive 10 feet or 10 miles and have the thing just go kaput. Yeah. And then what do you do? You're stuck. I mean, it's a backwards move in transportation, really, to move to electric cars at this point. So they've got to catch up with the gas market. And well, they do have, of course, some of them that are pretty popular, of course, are the hybrids. Right. Where you have a little motor basically that charges your battery pretty much, and you can turn it off and just run on your electricity, but at least you're not stuck. Right. If the battery discharges completely. Right. And I've ridden around one of those, and they had a couple of nice qualities. One was, of course, the person was getting like 75 miles to the gallon or something crazy, which is awesome. And the other thing was it was real quiet. Yeah. So when it was running in electric mode, of course they were trying to have something that when you come up to a corner that is supposed to, you know how when you back up it goes deep. Right. They wanted to make sure you had, when you approach a crosswalk, that it was making some noise. Right. Well, of course that defeats the whole purpose. Yeah. Yeah. So no, like why don't you just have a noise at the crosswalk? You have a motion sensor that detects the car coming down the road and says car approaching or something. I mean. Lots of things. Yeah, there's don't put it on the car. It'll all work out. And of course, then of course, as we talked about before, when you get to the autonomous cars, that's when things are really going to change. That's when it's going to get super fun. All right, is that all you got? That's it. I got just one real quick thing, or two real quick things. One, we'll have to look out for this in the future. Trump declassified some of the Russia documents. Yes. So we'll have to see what results, who reads them, and what they say. But that's something to. Well, they're fighting. The ones that he declassified apparently are still going to come across redacted to some extent. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, apparently they're not, the FBI and the intelligence people are not giving up without a fight. Right. They say, okay, you can declassify this stuff, but oh, by the way, here's my magic marker and I've scratched everything up. He doesn't have to put up with that. No, I know he doesn't. I know. I mean, and he shouldn't. He should just say, I want the unredacted ones. Yeah. Because everything is about national security. Yeah. Well, right. Well, so we're looking forward to that. Yeah. Also, I noticed that the sex workers had some negative things to say about the new robot brothels. Yeah, oh yeah. I thought that was interesting. It sort of goes right along with your nun whipper analogy. Here the prostitutes are complaining. That's right. They're taking our jobs, taking our jobs. The damn robots are muscling us out. So interesting. All right. So we do this twice a week these days, everybody. You are welcome to join us.
we'll be back on Sunday at 4 o'clock right here on the
Jimmy Doan
Show. Doane, Jimmy Doan right there. And we are, of course, on YouTube. Tell your friends, send us a message, and we'll talk to you soon. I'm